Here's everything you need to know about the UFO and ET crash in Brazil in 1996, as presented to the National Press Club in Washington, D.C. on January 20th, 2026. This was presented by James Fox, a filmmaker and a UFO researcher. His documentary about the Brazilian UFO crash is called Moment of Contact. The Master of Ceremonies is Karen Austin. She is the managing director at the John Mack Institute and the project manager at the Archives of the Impossible at Rice University. The first person to speak is Kirk McConnell. He served 37 years on the staff of the Senate Committees of the Armed Services and Intelligence and the House Intelligence Committee. He retired a couple of years ago and investigated UAPs while he was in the government. McConnell says that the US government has heard from credible witnesses about highly intelligent non-human beings, crash retrievals, and reverse engineering. Next is Jacques Vallée, a ufologist and an icon, actually. He is an engineer, a computer scientist, and an author. He could not appear in person, so he sent a pre-recorded video. And in it, Vallée explains that he created a UFO data warehouse system used by a Defense Intelligence Agency program at Bigelow Aerospace. The data includes 260,000 reports of anomalous objects in flight and hundreds of reports of non-human beings, some described similarly to the ETs in Brazil. He now serves on the Scientific Advisory Board of the French government for the National Center for Space Studies. He says that we need a more open international exchange regarding UAP and ET information, otherwise research is hindered. He says there appears to be an extraterrestrial phenomena empowered by advanced artificial intelligence. Next, James Fox. He describes the UAP incident in Varginha, Brazil in January 1996. Multiple witnesses saw a cigar-shaped craft in the sky with a tear on its side, in distress, with white vapor coming out of it. And it crashed with at least one surviving ET. There's believed to be 2 ETs. He tells us about the witnesses who are about to testify. Fox says there are more witnesses and the investigation is not over. There are alleged videos and photographs that he's been trying to get his hands on. Fox says this could settle the case once and for all, that we are not alone. The first witness to speak is Carlos de Souza, a businessman, a geography teacher, and an ultralight pilot. He does not speak English. He was there in person, so a translator was provided. De Souza was on his way to an ultralight pilot gathering when he saw a cylindrical craft in the sky. It was descending. He saw the tear on the side of it, and he saw white vapor coming out of it, and he thought it was a blimp. He knew it crashed, and he wanted to get over there and help the people in the blimp. When he arrived, there was a bad odor like ammonia and rotten eggs that burned his eyes. Half the craft was intact and half was in fragments. He was standing in the middle of the wreckage when he picked up a fragment that looked like aluminum foil. And when he squeezed it and let it go, it bounced back into shape. And this is exactly what we heard about a fragment from the Roswell crash. As he was about to put this fragment in his pocket, a military man hit him in the chest with his rifle. He dropped the fragment and he was told to leave. De Souza said, "No, I don't want to go. I want to help the people who just crashed." The soldier aimed the gun at his head and told him to leave now or I will split your skull. De Souza said he was scared and confused. He left in his car and he went to a gas station to compose himself when 2 men in a dark vehicle approached him, calling him by name, stating his address, naming his wife and his business. He asked who they were, and they replied, "You saw nothing, you know nothing, or you will have problems for the rest of your life." When the men left, D'Souza attempted to write down their license plates, but they didn't have any. D'Souza gets emotional and he begins to cry. He says it's been difficult to hide this for 30 years, the ridicule he has endured, and the difficulty of being witness to such an event has been extremely hard on him. He asks the authorities not to abandon the witnesses and allow the truth to emerge. This was a very touching testimony which left many of us teary-eyed, including me. The next 8 witnesses are all Brazilian, and they tried to come to the conference, but their visas were denied. Fox got Representative Burleson from Missouri to help out, but he couldn't get them over here either. So they spoke via a pre-recorded video. They also don't speak English, so everything was translated on the bottom of the video. Oh, sorry, kitty. This is 3. Fabio Furtado. He says he was working on a farm when he saw a cylindrical object in the sky and he knew that it had landed. So the next day he went to look and he saw a yellow mark on the land, and he says he knew that it was not of this world. Next, Liliana Silva. She is one of the 3 girls who saw the ET. She was walking home with her sister and a friend when she saw a strange creature in a vacant lot, crouched beside a wall. The being was short, had red eyes, and brown, oily skin. She looked into its eyes and knew it was suffering, and she wanted to help it. When she saw it, she said she had a horrible feeling, as if the world had stopped. And she says she felt like a film of her life was being played. Next, Katia Xavier, one of the 3 girls who described the being as having oily skin, 3 fingers, and a large foot. She was about to grab the being to help it when Liliana pulled her back. She felt bad for it. She could tell that it was suffering. And to this day, she has guilt that she did not help that being. She called the police, but she doesn't know if the police helped it. And she says still, she sees the being's eyes everywhere. And the being in the incident transformed her for life. Next, Valkyria, one of the 3 girls and the sister of Liliana. She described the being the same way and says she saw terror in its eyes. Luisa Helena da Silva. She is the mother of Liliana and Valkyria. She was home when the girls got there, and she instantly knew that something serious had happened. She went to the area where the being was. It wasn't there, but she saw a footprint with 3 long toes, and there was a bad smell that stayed in her nose for 25 days. Shortly after the incident, 4 men dressed in black came to her house. They presented her with a briefcase full of money, telling her that she could be rich. She called it strange money. It was money that she had never seen before. And she did not think that 3 of the men spoke her language because only 1 was talking to her. She was told if she took the money, they would have to leave where they're living, and they would have to go on TV, and they would have to lie and say that the girls saw a calf or a sick dog or a sick human. Louisa says that she couldn't lie, and she couldn't ask the girls to lie, and she refused the briefcase full of money. Ney Nadias. He's a journalist and a director of TV Princesa in Brazil. He heard of the incident and went to investigate. He was blocked by soldiers, telling him that he couldn't enter due to matters of national security. He heard that there was a commotion at the regional hospital where an ET was taken, so he went there. And while he was outside, he heard people running through the woods, and he heard people shouting, "Surround it, surround it!" And he heard someone saying, "It's smooth." He sent reporters to a press conference by the European Space Agency to ask questions. As they pressed for answers, they were told if they asked any more, they'd be arrested. The agency was covering it up, saying it was a military drill or maintenance on trucks. He says there are more witnesses, but they're afraid to talk. The blurred man. This man has his face blurred, and he also has his voice distorted. He was in the Brazilian army in 1996 during the incident. He says he was told to drive to the hospital to pick up something and drive it to another city. He arrived at the hospital to see that he was transporting the ET. Later, he heard talk that Americans had the ET and transported it to an undisclosed area. Marta. Her brother Marco Xerez died after touching the ET. He was in the military, sent to get the ET, and he grabbed it with his bare hands. He got scratched, bacteria entered his body, and he died. She says many people think this is a fantasy story, but it's a serious matter. She asks for witnesses to come forth and for governments to stop hiding the truth. Now we return to the witnesses that are present at the conference. Dr. Armando Fortunato. He's a physician and forensic pathologist and medical examiner for the Brazilian police for over 30 years. He has a law degree and is a court-appointed medical expert. He was city councilman in Virginia and president of the Medical Association and secretary of health. He was awarded the honorary Citizen of Virginia in 2023. Dr. Armando conducted the autopsy of Marco Xerez. Due to a scratch he received while handling the ET, a highly virulent and multi-drug resistant bacterium entered his body, progressed quickly, spreading through his body and resulting in septic shock and ultimately his death. He sent organ fragments and blood samples to his colleague, Dr. João Janini, who was a professor and doctor specializing in anatomic pathology. Dr. Janini was too sick to come to the U.S., so he sent a sworn statement that was read alive. He says that the access granted to him was limited exclusively to tissue fragments of the soldier, and this bacterium proved to be a microbial agent of extremely high aggressiveness and lethality. He says the infection may be a highly specialized mechanism of aggression and defense, which raises the hypothesis of its alien origin. He's awaiting the legal procedures for the exhumation of the body, with the expectation that advanced studies in molecular biology may provide new evidence that it is an organism of extraterrestrial origin. If confirmed, such a finding would represent proof of the existence of extraterrestrial life. Senator Eduardo João. He says he is not here representing the Brazilian government. He has been curious about the topic since he was a kid. He reminds us that there's another mysterious UFO event that happened in Brazil called Operation Plate in 1977 and 1978, where there were UFO sightings and alleged attacks by strange lights. There were glowing orbs and other strange phenomena. He tells us that the Brazilian pacifist and spiritualist Chico Xavier said that 50 years after man has reached the moon, if we didn't have a third world war, the world would shortly come to know a closer contact with beings from other planets. Dr. Italo Venturelli. He suffered a near-fatal heart attack in 2024, which prompted him to come out and tell the truth despite the consequences to his career. On January 20th, 1996, the doctor was called into an improvised intensive care room, and he was shown a black and white video of a being. He thought it was a child lying in bed with extreme hydrocephalus. He was then shown the ET in a hospital bed, and he knew immediately it was not human. It was breathing, had no apparent pain. It was conscious. It was not bleeding. It radiated calmness. It was serene. Its eyes were lilac. Its skin was white. Its head and eyes were teardrop shaped. It had thin arms, 3 fingers with an opposable thumb, no nipples, and a tiny mouth. It looked like a 7-year-old child with a sheet covering up to its waist. The being looked at the doctor, looked out the window at the sky, looked back at the doctor. The doctor felt like the being was telling it where it was from. The doctor sensed that the ET was fully aware of what was happening, and he sensed that it was grateful for their help, but it wanted to leave. And I quote Dr. Venturelli. Its serenity and powerful presence led me to believe it had a very high level of intelligence and perception, higher than human beings. It seemed like an angel, with understanding and compassion in its gaze, aware that despite our limitations, we were doing the best that we could for it. He says that everyone, especially the younger generations, deserve to know there is more beyond human existence, and he is eyewitness to the proof. Colonel Fred Clausen, retired U.S. Air Force colonel and fighter pilot. He flew missions during Vietnam and was awarded the Distinguished Flying Cross twice. While flying a F-15, he intercepted a UFO. He took gun camera film, which was immediately confiscated. He says, according to several Brazilian authorities, on or about January 20th, 1996, a U.S. Air Force cargo plane, most likely a C-17, took off from a base in the U.S. and it flew secretly into Brazilian airspace without flight clearance to Viracopos Airport in Campinas, which is about 4 hours south of Virginia. Witnesses saw unusual cargo and knew that the plane flew to the U.S. He says, if this is true, there would have to be 30 to 40 Americans who would have knowledge of this, and he went through the paper trail in detail as to how a mission, even if it's classified, would have. I quote Colonel Clausen. So here is my plea today. If you are a participant and have knowledge of the mission, come forward. You are probably retired now in your 70s, maybe a little older like me, and have languished for 30 years with this knowledge. Come forward. We know this mission happened, and you know it too. Come forward. The time is now. Kirk Mechanical. I'm sorry, every time the cat jumps around, the computer shakes. Kirk Mechanical returns. He talks about whistleblower protections. People are afraid to come forward. Whistleblowers are being harassed, threatened, financially ruined. And he asks, why can't information about biologics be released? And I quote McConnell. The stakes are so high because I'm convinced, obviously I can't prove it right now, that they're hiding definitive proof that we're not alone. And I understand the need for potential national security related issues on the technology. If it falls into the wrong hands, and they weaponize it. Okay, I understand that maybe there's the acknowledgement that we have it, but the biologics to me doesn't pose a national security threat. So why can't we release information on the biologics? Then we have Representative Eric Burleson from Missouri. He reminds us that the Oliver Stone film, JFK, created a movement within our society to get to the truth, so the JFK Disclosure Act was formed. He hopes that James Fox's film does the same, and that a UFO Disclosure Act is created. Okay, that's all the witnesses. There were a few questions that were taken, but it was hard to hear them because the people weren't all mic'd. But someone did ask James Fox about the alleged videos and photographs, and James said he's been doing everything possible to try and get a hold of them. You can watch the entire conference on News Nation and on the YouTube channel Podcast UFO Live Shows. Which brings me to my take on all this. I do believe the witnesses. They were very believable. It was some of the most emotional, compelling UFO witness testimony I've ever seen. I believe a spaceship crashed in Virginia. I believe that there were ETs, people saw them, their lives were changed. One person lost his life. Maybe 2 ETs lost their lives, and ET lives matter too. I wonder, though, if the craft was shot down, and who shot it down, Brazil or the United States, because the military was right there to retrieve it. We know about Jake Barber and his company, Skywatcher, which likes to shoot down craft. And Barber says that the purpose of Skywatcher is to retrieve exotic materials. And he says they bring him down using a dog whistle and psionics, and that he has 100% accuracy in bringing UFOs down. If you would like to know more about Barber and his Skywatcher and knocking spaceships out of the sky, you can listen to my podcast, UFO and ET 101, on my YouTube channel, Alien Spirit with Sev, or on most of the podcast platforms. It's episode 4, Top 10 Military UFO Whistleblowers. Congratulations, James Fox. You did a really good job. This was good. Thank you for all the compelling witnesses for speaking out. I think it was very well done, and I think it was very riveting. Testimony does matter. It's very important. But we've reached a point where evidence is needed, because that is what's going to capture the mainstream attention and push this truth forward. Now you're in the know. Thank you for watching.